Welcome to this special edition of Night Talk Canada. We are taking a break from our regular Wednesday night live stream. 2025, though, is closing out one of the most turbulent years in recent memory.
And Gary and I thought it would be interesting to discuss some of the highs and lows from our perspectives. So let's get started.
All right, Eddie, let's go back, just before New Year's Eve last year and look at the fact that this week last year, really started Justin Trudeau's exit from the leadership of the Liberal Party and as Prime Minister of the country as well, when Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland refused to table the fall economic statement. That he'd been dealing with, some rumblings from within the caucus and what was building to be a revolt caused him to pause for reflection. And over the holidays, of course, he did just that and came back in early January and announced he would be stepping down as Prime Minister and leader of the Liberal Party in March. Now, just prior to that, of course, we had Donald Trump winning the election in the U.S. and serving another term, 4 years, and started talking about Canada becoming the 51st state and
right from the get-go.
Yeah, exactly, and tariffs and imposing tariffs on Canada and other countries. So they go down.
And don't forget Governor Trudeau.
Right. That's right. Governor Trudeau. Exactly. Yeah. So first thing, Prime Minister Trudeau and Dominic LeBlanc, the Minister of All Things, and Trudeau's right-hand man, fly down for dinner at Mar-a-Lago with Trump and company, even though Trump had not been, sworn into office yet. Went down to kiss the ring and see what they, I guess, could do to mitigate any sort of potential damage. And then it rolls into the new year. We have that reflective moment with Trudeau standing out in the cold and announcing that he was stepping away. And things started to roll from there. I was somewhat surprised that he did it as quickly as he did after the time off over the holiday period last year, but at least he did it.
Yeah.
And he, cleared out within 3 months, which he was on long enough to oversee or keep things rolling as the party went through a leadership campaign. Now, at that point, what was really very, very interesting was, remember Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives and the 25-point lead they had over?
Significant,
Significant lead is, just unbelievable. So there you have that, and all of a sudden, the Liberals are in a leadership campaign.
Right.
They had some good candidates. And of course, the anointed one, the favorite, was Mark Carney, former Bank of Canada governor, former Bank of England governor.
I remember you and I actually, it wasn't even a debate, we actually agreed on it that the 5 candidates that were vying for the position of leader of the leadership of the Liberal Party, we had pretty much stated that pretty much all of them could have fit that position and that role extremely well. Just based on their credentials and what they actually brought to the table. And it was the first time in a long time that we actually saw that type of competency at the candidate level for the Liberal Party of Canada, which was, I think it was a blessing in disguise at the end of the day.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. So onward we go. Carney wins the leadership and picks a cabinet with a lot of Trudeau holdovers. And before you know it, he's there and he's calling an election.
Yeah.
For April 28th. Was it 28th? Yeah, 28th is sticking in my mind, but it was the end of April. So very quickly, we were into full federal election mode. Remembering that Poilievre and the Conservatives had that 25-point lead, and for a year or better, they had been a government in waiting. It was theirs for the taking. And what happened, Eddie?
Well, you know what, Gary? I mean, right from the get-go, when you mentioned that Freeland walked out on Trudeau, pretty much, and the caucus pretty much were not supportive of Trudeau Jr., Justin Trudeau, and then he eventually resigned. That, along with what was happening down in the regime of the United States, in parallel. So you're looking at October, November, December, January. In parallel to all of this, these situations kind of formed this perfect storm that got us to the situation and the predicament of having a new mandate for the Liberal Party again after 2.5 terms of absolute chaos within Liberal Party and them leading Canada with Trudeau. So you have the Trump factor, you have the Poilievre factor, you have the very, very strong leadership race for the Liberal Party of Canada. You look at the campaign management of the Conservatives. You look at the overall campaign towards the leadership for the country in the last general election. You look at the debate. All of these things coming together. Poilievre not being able to separate himself from the American rhetoric, or the rhetoric of MAGA policies and the voice of MAGA, as opposed to separating himself from that. He seemed to be like a fly towards a light and kind of going towards it. And by the time he realized he was too close to it, he couldn't back out. And I think Canada as a population saw that, especially with the rhetoric coming out from Trump in terms of annexing us and becoming the 51st state, and the tariff pressure he wanted, that he was proposing and planning to put on us, and essentially using economic warfare on us without firing a bullet. Canadians, they sort of understood what was at stake here. And Gary, if you remember, at some point, even before the Freeland situation, you and I talked about who have we got as the leaders of our principal parties in Canada, and who can you possibly vote for? And I think you and I ended up voting for not the best candidate. You and I ended up voting for the candidate that was the best out of the worst that were running for the last federal election. And Trudeau won, because we kept on saying, well, who else is there to vote for, right? I think the Liberal Party did what they needed to do to put the right person in place, okay? In my opinion, the Conservative Party did not. They just stayed with status quo. And the status quo was very much, unfortunately, to his campaign, he was immediately called mini MAGA, which, of course, wouldn't bode very well for any candidate, especially going into an election where the United States president was threatening us. The Conservative Party still to this day, I know we're going to get on this later on in the show, they still haven't got a candidate that would make a significant change to the way things might roll out in the next election. So, yeah, Gary, well let's cycle back to what you're saying. Lost a 22, 23-point lead in an election heading into what, the final 6 weeks or final 4 weeks before we hit the polls? I mean, like, wow. And this is all just a perfect storm happening in 3 months, which essentially set the stage for the next 11 months that we're gonna talk about. It's just been a crazy and an amazing year.
It was a whirlwind.
Yeah.
first 3 to 4 months of the year. Like, you know, I remember you and I doing the first show of the year in early January. And the next thing I know, we're doing the aftermath, the wrap-up of the federal election at the end of April, and it was gone in just a blink, it seemed.
Poof. Yeah.
In the meantime, there were a lot of things happening from external forces as well, and again, we'll roll into that as we move along, but just the way that this whole thing unfolded, and not only did the Conservatives lose the election after having a 25-point lead,
25 points, right.
the leader lost his seat that he'd held for about 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So there, you know, a real message was delivered.
And to a newcomer and rookie, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And one of the things that, and even today, if you listen to Pierre Poilievre, and I know that we're going to get some of the hardline Poilievre supporters commenting again, but one of the things, even today, if you listen to him, first, he, over the last couple of months in this current session of Parliament and outside, he was fixated on Trudeau and blaming Trudeau.
Yeah.
Now, because there have been some defections from the Conservative caucus over to the Liberal side, and the Liberals are now just one seat shy of a majority, and we should say that Carney and the Liberals won a minority government in late April.
Mm-hmm.
They were 3 seats shy at the time of a majority, and now they're 1 seat shy of a majority after 2 Conservatives crossing the floor to the Liberal Party. And then in the midst of that, you had another Conservative announce he was resigning in the spring and stepping away altogether. There was so much turbulence there. And finally, Poilievre does something and brings in a new campaign manager, Steve Outhouse. And it's going to be interesting to see where that goes. But I don't see any change there yet, because Poilievre did year-end interviews with CBC and CTV, and in both of them, he was grilled on the fact that he lost his seat, the fact that he blew a 25-point lead, and his best comeback, first of all, was, well, you know, we increased our share of the popular vote. Well, that's all well and good, but it didn't turn into seats for you, so guess what? You still lost the election. And his other thing now is the latest one, and I couldn't believe, I read this online and I said, no, he couldn't have said that. And then I saw the video clip of him blaming Carney.
Mm-hmm.
Carney's doing the dirty deals to get Conservatives to come over so he can get his majority government.
Yeah. And you know what? Doesn't that sound like somebody else we all know?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Now that you mention it, the comparisons are becoming stronger all the time.
Yeah.
So that gets us up to the spring as far as the election and the politics on this side are concerned. In amongst all of this, Donald Trump is sworn in as President of the United States, brings his buddy Elon Musk along to cut government fat, and immediately continues and gets even bolder about Canada becoming the 51st state, and it just went on and on and on. However, what he wasn't counting on, and what happened was, he awakened a new sense of fight within Canadians from coast to coast to coast.
Yeah.
And no prouder moment could we have experienced as a country as to what we did at that point and what we continue to do.
And proudly.
Proudly.
Yeah.
Elbows up. And away we went into the corners with the elbows up and threw it right back even though at the time our federal government, in this case, our new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, was trying to play the diplomat.
Well, he was in a midst of transition, right?
Yeah,
And I think you and I coined it a little bit of a honeymoon period for him as well. But yeah, I mean, while all that was going on, Canadians, Facebook groups were created all over the country for just that. Elbows up, and what was the one? Buy Canadian,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And a number of websites and apps popped up so that you could scan something, and it would tell you if it was made in Canada, assembled in Canada, prepared in Canada, bottled in Canada, whatever.
And if it wasn't, here's an alternative for you.
Exactly. So it was, and that continues. And look at Florida.
Yeah.
How many snowbirds sold their condos and their homes in Florida and said, we're out of here.
Right.
And they did.
Yeah.
And of course, at first, Trump and the governor of Florida kind of made light of it. But then all of a sudden now, Florida is becoming basically a ghost state in a lot of ways. And Canadians are not going back. As a matter of fact, I just saw some stats the other day where Canadians have turned away completely from the U.S., for their winter escapes. And Mexico is becoming the beneficiary of
The
that.
spot,
Yeah.
not only for Canadians. I mean, this is international travel as well.
Exactly.
And look, during the summer periods, of course, the border states to Canada and the eastern and the states on the east coast that get a significant amount of tourism dollars from Canadians that spend their vacations there. They all struggled. Mom and pop shops struggling to stay open because of advanced cancellations on Canadians' vacation plans into some of these places. You're looking at Maine, you're looking at Massachusetts, you're looking at New York and Jersey. There's the hordes of Canadians spend their summer dollars there. It just wasn't there. And I saw an article as well that right now, in terms of Florida, there's something like a 26% reduction in normally expected Canadian travelers down there. I would have thought it was significantly higher, but you do have to remember, Gary, a lot of these individuals have property down there that they're stuck with, that they can't sell because of what's going on. So, I mean, obviously they're still going to go down there and winter in their homes, but a lot of folks that actually did not own property or did not already sell it would not spend money down in Florida in hotels or Airbnbs or whatnot, contributing to the economy. Las Vegas saw a 56% reduction. I think it was 56% reduction in Canadian travelers. So people traveling from Canada, they had a drop of 56%. And I wonder what these numbers and figures are going to look like for the Sunbelt states, your California, your New Mexico's, your Texas, and everything along the Gulf, the Gulf of Mexico. What they're going to be reporting come April in terms of the amount of money they've lost, where Canadians and European international travelers, European, are completely avoiding the southern belt of the states, the Sun Belt, and going to Mexico. And I would suspect the number is going to be significantly higher than what the American pundits of Trump's administration are basically saying right now. It is going to be significant, and I feel sorry for the small guy, the small American who's trying to make a living. Whether they voted for that regime or not, I still feel bad for them that they're losing all this tourism dollars and tourism value, Canadians traveling down there, because of sheer absolute political stupidity. And you know what? It is what it is. And you know what? The Mexicans are welcoming the world with open arms. And much so that the prices are actually going up because the people in the tourism industry realize there's a huger influx of former American winter vacationers and snowbirds deciding to go into Mexico. So they're all going to be doing okay. And it's just insanity. I guess the point we're trying to make, Gary, is that every Canadian that makes a small contribution to Elbows Up, or a small contribution to Buy Canadian, or all in all Avoid American, is starting to have an impact on the economy, at least from the tourism perspective, tourism and travel perspective, among other things, right?
Right. You have the governors of those states along the border, especially in the New England area, and even in our area, coming up and pleading with us.
Yeah.
They've been running promotions, and you're our friends, and we miss you. And I became very hard and really quite cynical when I started hearing those kinds of pleas coming from them. And I agree with a lot of others who say it's not that they really miss us.
They miss our money.
They miss our money.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's all about. And yes, there's damage on the other side of the border. As you say, small businesses can't hang on. But that, yes, we fought back and are hitting them where it hurts. But by the same token, a lot of people who bought Trump's line that it's the other countries that are paying for the tariffs, you're not
Correct.
going to have to pay for the tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
They're beginning to find out that, the counter tariffs and everything, that's making things much more expensive.
Yeah.
And they're beginning to hurt. And it doesn't matter. I saw something the other day where Trump or one of his cronies promoting the fact that inflation was down. Oh, it was Trump. Inflation's down. Food prices are down. Gas is cheaper than what it was. Well, you ask the average American, food prices are up.
Oh, yeah.
And, so are prices for pretty much everything else. Mm-hmm. And if gas prices are down, that's only because they're having a surplus because Americans can't afford to travel as much.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not getting people driving down from Canada or driving up from Mexico and spending time and buying gas either.
Right.
He still, this is the guy who, remember when he brought out his full list of tariffs and he had a name for it now and it just escapes me? Didn't want to unveil them on April 1st.
Mm-hmm.
He waited till April 2nd, and he had that big ceremony in the Rose
Day
Garden.
Or something like that.
Yeah, and he had that big ceremony.
An island of penguins or something.
Exactly, and that's exactly it. Like I was thinking about that before you logged in, and I'm thinking
I've forgotten about that one.
Yeah. An island with penguins, like.
Not a human being.
Put a tariff on a penguin even if they could pay.
Yeah. Oh.
That to me, if nothing else, highlighted the insanity that is currently occupying the White House of the United States of America, then I don't know what would, because that was just... And of course, the bromance came to a halt between Musk and Trump.
Yeah.
And he just goes on and on and on. So again, when you look at the threats that have been made, the trade war that we're in, and concessions were made by Canada to try and get negotiations moving along faster. And the more we gave, the more he wanted. And what did I see today? But a headline and some crawls on the screen that, remember, the UK was the first to announce a trade deal with Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? That trade deal is pretty much gone because the Americans are now demanding more concessions before fully signing on.
Right. Well, that was more that I mean that was Starmer basically standing beside Trump saying that they're moving towards an agreement, and then Trump proudly boasting that this is a great day for our relationship and
Yep.
this signing and yada yada. And meanwhile, you see Starmer just sitting there, and I swear he had a smirk across his British face. Like,
I
what
remember
is
you saying that too.
what,
Yes.
yeah, what is this guy doing here? And you know what? Just let him ramble on. You know, we're going to conduct business like any other country
Yep.
will. And I mean, I've seen there's a few places that we look at in terms of um, podcasts to get information above and beyond ABF, meaning anything
Yes.
but where there hasn't been one document signed by two official governments stating that this is the agreement we have in terms of trade now and trade in the future. Not even a formally signed document that basically says, okay, this document is going to start us down the path of negotiations and discussions. And the only one that was actually presented by Trump that, you know, he had the big swishing signature, it was on blank paper and it fell out of his leather notebook and it was blank. So there hasn't been anything clearly demonstrated as a success factor in terms of any deals that Trump indicates he signed as a victory. I haven't seen any, Gary. I don't
No.
know if I'm missing the boat here or if you've seen anything, but I haven't seen absolutely zero in terms of significance that does anything here. That's point one in terms of trade. And point two, as I mentioned a few episodes ago, you know, Manel and I are, you know, we're, I'm not saying we're anti-American, but we're anti-regime at this particular point.
Right.
And, you know, I wasn't setting foot in the United States and spending my dollar unless it was a family obligation. And recently, Manel and I visited her cousins in California. And it was our first exposure to the United States since all this chaos started at the beginning of the year. And you know what? I don't know what Trump is buying or what his people are telling him. Gary, the price of beef, the same cut of beef we bought last year for
Yes.
Thanksgiving Sunday dinner,
Yeah.
to this year was 100%. It was double the price.
Wow.
That same side of beef was double the price. I had one guest at a Thanksgiving dinner in the States who I know is a Trump supporter, bitching and complaining that I don't understand why a decision 2 years ago and a year ago is having a consequence on why my ground beef is costing me 50% more than last year. And I kindly looked at him and said, you mean the policies and decisions made in the last 6 months? Kind of stared at me and said, well, no, this is stuff that's been happening for a year or two now already. Said, no, this is stuff that's been happening over the last 6 months. And the man wouldn't talk to me for the rest of the night. So, you know what? He still has this group of people in the United States that still refuse to acknowledge that the country is in some difficulty. I'm not saying in trouble, all right across the board, but the country is in some difficulty. So myself, if I was an American citizen and every time I went out there and bought beef and it cost me 50% to 100% more than what it cost last year, I'd be kind of scratching my head. And fuel is not cheaper. And I've had a lot of people come, well, it's California. You're in California. No, it's the same thing everywhere. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to go on the internet and take a scan of grocery stores and whatnot, and you can actually see there's a significant increase in terms of how much things cost. And then you're looking at the selling power of product from the United States to countries. Let's keep Canada and Mexico in question here because we're going to be going through the CUSMA exercise, the CUSMA renegotiations.
Right.
Huge grocery chains in Mexico, in the Yucatan Peninsula, in Tulum, in Cancun, in these areas. They are no longer selling American beef, Gary. They are selling Canadian beef.
All right.
Canadian beef, Canadian pork, Canadian
Wow.
poultry. They have completely changed who they're buying product from. And that's a tribute to Canada, meaning we've got great meat products and whatnot, agricultural products, and they're being sold in Mexican stores. An entire display, and you see the flags all over the place. I saw it myself. Proud moment for me as a Canadian to see that. Good on Mexico for holding their ground and determining themselves where they're going to buy their product from. And it doesn't look like it's in the United States. So once again, poor farmer in the United States, suffering as a result of these horrible, horrible policies that the Trump regime has put into place. And, as time moves on, it's going to get consistently worse. Things don't go bad overnight. They'll just get worse steadily and surely. And you know what? It is what it is. And, I, like you, Gary, I'm just going to continue making my contributions to Canada First, Buy Canada First, and continue supporting a government. I don't care if it's liberal, I don't care if it's conservative, that supports a government that's Canada First and continues to promote Canadian products. I mean, Gary, look at the stuff we've been seeing right across all industries. We're talking aerospace. We're talking military contracts. We're talking agricultural projects. We're talking infrastructure progress. We're projects in progress. We're talking about first time, I don't know how many years, you had Canada and Alberta sign a memorandum of understanding about further building out the oil infrastructure. And it kind of goes back to, geez, Mr. Trump, thank you very much for opening your stupid pie hole in mouth. You're making Canada stronger. It's the kick in the chones and ass that we needed, along with a lot of other countries, that we've got to start not depending on the United States. And with every passing day and every passing week, we're getting further and further away from our dependency of the United States. So, thank you very much. I don't know what else to say, Gary. I mean, it's just been the crux of the entire year here in Canada.
And one other important thing we should mention as well, and that is the fact that this all brought together very quickly a movement to bring down interprovincial trade barriers. And I was getting concerned through the summer that it had been sort of pushed aside again, as it has in previous years. But then all of a sudden, here about a month ago, we get the announcement that agreements have been reached to remove interprovincial barriers, trade barriers on a wide range of things, and that there are only a couple of outstanding things left. Some of it related to food products, and I presume like booze, dairy and what have you, but also wine and spirits.
Yeah.
So and provinces doing what they can to make it much easier for professionals to move back and forth and go to areas where they're needed. It's just been another one of those elbows up moments where, despite, yes, we're going to have some disagreements as any family would, we're pulling together in other areas and we're standing up for ourselves. And and the federal government came in with a buy Canadian first for defense and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
You try and source Canadian wherever possible. And then, and only then, if you cannot source it, then we'll look outside. But by the same token, how do we make it ourselves? How do we encourage that kind of development and research and development that goes with it? So all of this, and we still have 2 weeks left in the year.
Yeah.
When you start looking at what has been accomplished, it's amazing. And as I said to you, Eddie, when we were talking about doing this, out of the number of years that I was in the news business, this to me is probably, when you look at everything coming together is probably the most turbulent year out of the 30 some odd years that I was in the business. Yes, there were years where there were different things happened, but when you look at how this country came together and what we were facing, and as we get into some other things, what has happened and what is happening and what the future could hold.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this year, again, it just seems like yesterday, and it was Christmas 2024, and now here we are a day later, it's Christmas 2025. The whole year is just a blur.
Right.
So, and that's why I thought, because I'm not a fan of year-ender looks kind of thing, but to me, just to talk about how our lives changed and how our lives changed so quickly and our mindset as Canadians, how that all happened in what has become a very, very short year. I just felt, why not talk about it? And hopefully, as people are watching later on, leave a comment. Let us know what your thoughts are. Did you find the same thing that we're talking about, and how much of a blur it was, and how turbulent it was, and it ain't over yet,
Well, it's funny that you mentioned how quickly the year's gone, Gary. I mean, in terms of the prep work for our weekly show, there's so many things that we want to talk about, and so many ideas that came about that we needed to talk about. And we were going to host a 5-hour show every Wednesday night?
Exactly.
Like literally, I mean, you would put a program together, and we'd agree to it, maybe change a small thing here and there on a Tuesday morning. By Tuesday night and Wednesday morning, something else happened that would require your attention and change the programming somewhat because it's news. I mean, things didn't move at snail's pace where maybe something happened once a week or so. This was a daily occurrence. And I can relate to what you're saying in your professional career as a broadcast journalist, that this has been one of those years where so much has happened, and not just so insignificant things, significant things around the world, and those affecting our country here in Canada, both good and bad. Just so much of it happened in a short time frame of a year, and even myself, I can't remember so much action happening globally as a result of policies of a man. I don't know what you want to call it. It's just directly or indirectly associated with this particular presidency, and I don't want to go on about him for the rest of the show. But thanks.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. And you know what? It's been a long time since I've actually felt this proud to be Canadian. And it's not just my contributions, but listening and hearing and watching the contributions of Canadians right across the country from all political spheres, from all walks of political spheres, just contributing and understanding what's at stake here and doing what's necessary to sustain our nation. I mean, it was a rolling joke between you and I. How much does it take to actually get the Quebec population on the Canadian bandwagon?
You read my mind. I was just thinking that.
And it happened. And Gary, even with the recent, we did the show on the Parti Québécois and Legault here, and how he's tanking in the polls. Even with the talk of separation here in Quebec, there is that Canadian national pride that you still consistently hear about and see here in Quebec. So how much do you have to piss off a Quebecer to get them to jump on the Canadian flag? And they still continue to do so. So I'm a proud Quebecer. I mentioned that last week along with you. And I am a proud Canadian. And I haven't been more prouder than I have become this year in a very, very, very long time. Call it Liberal Party 2.0. I really think they should rebrand themselves to something else, because they're nothing. At least Poilievre can't complain about the Liberal Party anymore. But it's just a whole thing the way it's going. And you know what? it's going to be an exciting 2026, Gary, especially on the political landscape here, because Poilievre is going up for a leadership review.
That's right.
Come January.
Yep.
And you know what? I really hope that we're going to get back into a time here in Canada where you have solid leadership in solid political parties. So the next time we go into an election, you and I can have a conversation and say, wow, we got three fantastic candidates here. We have a very important decision to make, as opposed to, they're all pretty bad. So which one's the lesser of the evil, which is something, besides this last election that we had to endure for the last three elections.
Yeah.
I really hope the Conservative Party puts somebody up there that I can potentially vote for.
And bring the party back a little bit more to the center. Poilievre has complained that the Liberals are, under Carney, are becoming more like conservatives. Well, then, you know what? Do something about it. Pull yourself from, because you're drifting way to the right. Come back to the center, because the population of the country is such at the moment, we're more centrist. And so, either side, if both parties are moving more to the center, without abandoning totally, the left and right, then it's going to really, give the average voter much more cause to take time to listen and think and then make an informed decision, and to have it so that, as you say, Eddie, like to have good leadership on each side, and to have to make the choice between the good leadership. You may lean one way, but you still have one of them in opposition, or two of them in opposition, and that's fine too, because you have a good leadership role on both sides of the House of Commons.
Right.
And that can only bode well for Canadians and the laws and programs that are developed coming out of there. And that's the other thing. Hopefully, instead of the theatrics, the political theatrics that we are still seeing in question period and in the committees, hopefully they'll all just realize, okay, you know what? That war is to be fought on the campaign trail. Now we're into the real deal here. And it's time to focus on what's best for Canadians, period.
Right.
That's what you're getting paid to do. For sure. All right, so now we've got us up to the summer, kind of leaning into the fall. And of course, Pierre Poilievre ran in probably what's considered the safest Conservative seat in Canada, out in Alberta, and won the by-election out there, which Carney called as quickly as possible. And he was very quick to do it. He honored his commitment that he would call it right away, so that Poilievre could have a chance to get back into the House of Commons as leader of the party. And, there was a glimmer of hope at one point. It almost seemed like, maybe he had learned his lesson. That lasted, about 5 minutes of that in the House of Commons on his first day back, and then it's been downhill ever since. And obviously, watching his demeanor in those 2 year-end interviews that I've watched so far, he hasn't changed. Anyhow, so that's that. Then, of course, we had the Israeli strikes on Hamas, and all of the turmoil in the Mideast in that respect, and enter the Orange Man again, trying to play the peacemaker. And eventually they managed to hammer out a ceasefire, and it looked like it was going to fall apart very quickly. And there's been a lot of back and forth as to who is the real bad guy in that whole scenario. And, we could spend from now until next New Year's Eve talking about that and that alone. But the fact of the matter is, there was an attack on Israelis, and we all know, I'm not going to rehash the whole scenario, but it's like I've said in the past, you poke the bear, then you better be prepared for the bear to bite back, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And, so there they are. Has anything been resolved? No.
No.
Will anything be resolved in our lifetimes, Eddie? No.
I don't think so. You know what? They might get to a peaceful solution. They might rebuild, but that, we talked about this before, the history in the region just gets in the way of that actually happening. It's just sad all around, Gary. I don't know what the solution is, or if there even is a solution to this. Can guns and tanks and warplanes sustain peace? Maybe, I don't know. Obviously, it didn't work this time around. And you look at the rhetoric of creating the Riviera of Palestine,
Right.
as Trump put it. When you start speaking in those terms, I mean, obviously, the message to the rest of the world and the people that are fighting this war in that whole region, it doesn't bode well for what the American policy is. It's in support of something that's not going right there, and I really wish I'd love to see peace in that area. I really would. And then it comes the question of peace at what cost, and peace at whose detriment. It always comes down to that. And like anything else in this world here, the unfortunate part is it's the impoverished and those that need help that typically are the ones that end up suffering one way or the other, whether through war or through peace. They're always inevitably the individuals that suffer through all of this, and it's just so heartbreaking to continuously hear about and to continuously see. So, I'm hopeful that something will happen out there that'll bring peace to the area, and at some point rebuild and find solutions for all of these people that have been completely war torn and displaced. It's very difficult to see.
And speaking of war torn, look at the Ukraine-Russian conflict. 4 years now. Are they close to peace? Eddie, I don't know.
It's hard to say, Gary. I mean, right now it's the Ukraine that's fighting the Russian bear, and who knows how many other reinforcements they're getting from paramilitary groups. And you got Korea and you got China that's with them. Fighting from a manpower perspective, they're fighting this alone. From a weaponry perspective, you have the alliance in Europe supplying them with as much as they could, without compromising their own military capability. Putin won't stop. He's not going to stop at the Ukraine if he's allowed to go through the Ukraine. So Europe has to prepare for this. And the difficult thing for me to see as a Canadian, is that the United States is just standing by. That's the part that kind of really scares me, where there's been an alliance, the NATO alliance, let's call it for what it is, or for what it isn't anymore. It's just not there without the United States. So what does the new military order say about what's going to be happening in 2026 or 2027 to deal with the Putin issue without the United States? We can't depend on the United States, and I guess that's why Canada continues to forge ahead in rebuilding our defense strategies, rebuilding or strengthening our alliances with the European military powers, because all European countries and Canada really have to forge ahead with a plan that they can't depend on the United States. And as we speak today in 2025, you can't depend on the United States. So what's going to change over the next 2 or 3 years? Can't wait for
Okay.
Putin, and you can't wait for Putin to push further. So yeah, I'm, you know what? As much as I'm afraid of what's happening in the Middle East. There doesn't seem to be any stop to the insanity out there. Um, it's probably more so what's happening in Eastern Europe, Russia and the Ukraine, because I think that's probably a powder keg that'll blow up a hell of a lot louder than anything you're going to see in the Middle East that will affect Europe or us here in Canada. So I agree with you, Gary. I don't see anything becoming of this. I don't think Ukraine's going to capitulate based on the Putin plan that was presented by the United States. And it's just going to, I think what's going to happen here is the United States are going to remain status quo and let Europe figure it out. I think that's what's essentially going to happen.
You know, Zelensky a couple of times now has come back with counter offers and trying to get around a couple of things that don't sit well with him that Putin has demanded or that uh, um, Trump has proposed. And usually, a lot of the items coming from Trump that he's proposing for the peace settlement are directly coming from Putin anyway. Putin hands Trump the script, and away they go. But it's just yeah. If Putin comes out, if it's not like the agreement is not looked upon as being relatively balanced and as fair as can be in a situation like that, so that it looks like Putin is on top, then yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, yeah. And and that's the whole thing too, though. I mean, in the United States, for example, if Donald Trump doesn't seem to be portrayed as the person of greatness, if you want to call it, it doesn't work. It doesn't bode well for anyone, any country, any person. If it's not Trump centric, then you know what? It's not good. It's not a good plan. It's a loss for the United States, and so on and so forth. You know what? The persona with Putin is pretty much the same thing. It has to be complete and absolute Putin centric. But here's the caveat. Putin is a highly motivated and intelligent, flawed, but intelligent individual who has military experience, who was the leader of the KGB during the Soviet heydays, now running the country and dealing with Trump and his cronies. He's literally skating circles around them. And you know what? That is not going to change anytime soon, which is why I'm saying this whole thing, this whole affair is going to be left to the Ukraine and the European alliance to try to thwart the advancement of Putin's ambitions out there. A madman, yes, but still a very intelligent, smart person, completely dancing circles around the policies today that are being portrayed or conveyed and pushed by the United States. And we didn't talk about it. I'm not sure what the timeline was, Gary, but Putin's airplane landing in American territory in Alaska. I
Right.
mean, that there in itself was, to me, it was a very shameful moment, and I felt bad for the United States of America that was actually allowed to happen. A war criminal being permitted to land on American soil, literally, right?
Well, exactly, and there's an arrest warrant out for him,
Hmm.
and nothing happened at all from that perspective. And it was really kind of a waste of time. Nothing really came out of it. And neither one of them were, I mean, they weren't together for a very,
For very long, no.
no, it was almost like, Air Force One will drop in and stir up some snow, and the Russian plane drops in and stirs up some snow, and they kind of get off and wave to each other, and basically they're gone again.
But there were two scenarios, Gary, that we saw in the news that was quite not gruesome, but just quite wow. A wow moment for me is one when we saw the American soldiers towering to get that red carpet in place under Putin's plane.
Yes,
that didn't bode very well for me. And the second piece is, was all high fives and shaking of hands, and the flyby of American military aircraft over Putin's head until they moved into the makeshift meeting room. Everybody is all jovial and buddy. Did you notice the expression on every American delegate's faces and President Trump's face as they walked out of that room? Sullen, scared, ashen looking. Okay. Obviously, they got their marching orders, or something in there happened that really upset them that didn't go their way. But to me, that's just a clear-cut indication of the amount of influence that President Putin has over the American government today in terms of policy, international policy between the two countries, and Putin's ambitions for Ukraine and beyond. If I had seen the entire delegation coming out with an air of jocularity, or still slapping each other on the back and complimenting each other, that would have been a whole different story. But that did not happen at all. For me, that was a scary moment. Like, oh my goodness, what the hell did he say to them?
Maybe he said, "I have pictures."
Yeah, I don't know. But oh my God, yeah. So he showed the pictures to Trump's delegation, and they were all shocked at what they saw. Oh my.
Probably.
Yeah, but I mean, that was a significant point.
It was.
A significant point in the year as well, that whole exercise.
Yeah, very much so. And I shouldn't be making light of it, but it's... I found that one hard to believe. And even the fact that during the G7 meeting here in Canada, that Trump is a convicted felon.
Yeah.
No, he's president of the United States. He's a convicted felon. Now, if you're a convicted felon coming in from the U.S., how far do you think you're going to get beyond the Canadian border?
Yeah, right.
Or if you're a convicted felon under U.S. terms going south of the border, how far do you think you're going to get? But yet Trump swooped in on Air Force One, went out to the G7 meeting, and yes, he's a world leader, and yes, we did a segment on that and talking about that, and it's kind of the diplomatic immunity kind of approach to it. You turn a blind eye, supposedly, and business goes on, life goes on. But
right.
And especially with some of the stuff he was throwing at us at that point in time. Anyway, it happened. I would have to say that the G7 meeting that Carney hosted was well done, and I think that it helped to boost our image in the world that, you know what, we're back on the world stage, and we're serious, with some serious diplomacy. We are serious about what we're doing, and we're not worried about how we're trending on social media, and we're paying attention to the real issues that Canadians want to be addressed.
Right.
So I think that was a high point as well. Now, just before we do call it a wrap, Eddie, there are a couple of other areas that we can touch on. And, from a sporting side, it was quite a year for us as well. And there was a couple of things that really stood out. And of course, the Four Nations face-off hockey. Right at the height of Trump throwing everything he could at us. and you could feel the pride again from coast to coast to coast when Canada would take to the ice. And of course, we came out on top.
Yeah, we did, and it was funny watching the memes come out of the Canadian beaver sitting on top of the American eagle while he's bashing a hockey stick over his head, all kinds of stuff like that. It was really entertaining to watch. The pressure between the two groups of players representing their countries was immense. They both showed exceptional pride in their countries. It's I talked about it in one of our segments where the Canadian fans were booing the American anthem and so on and so forth. It was really I understood why, but it was really sad to see in the sphere of international sports and good sportsmanship. I felt bad for the American players. I mean, they were there to play a game for their country in a sport that they're getting paid handsomely for and are very proud to play for their country. To get booed one way or the other, I just don't think it belongs in the sport. But by the same token, you kind of understand and appreciate when the country gets threatened, they're just not going to sit back and take it lightly. And Canadian hockey fans actually did express it quite heavily during that particular tournament. A good tournament at the end of the day, and it was just further fueled by the political crap that was coming out of Trump's mouth that just made it worse. And you know what? I mean, the Canadians came out victors in this. I think the sport, in a big sense, came out. The sport of professional hockey in North America came out as a victor in this. Food for thought about getting rid of future NHL All-Star games, because it's just display of hockey skill and not really a real hockey game. This is a great replacement for that. And you know what? It was a perfect lead up to the Olympics that are coming up in Italy in just a few short weeks. And again, right away, the talk is between the Canadian and American, the Canadian team and American teams facing off again in the Olympic tournament. And of course, it's the American loss is still quite sore to them. So it'll be a wonderful rematch to watch. And I certainly hope that the political crap that's coming out from the United States president stays in the United States, and it has no place in the world stage of the Olympic Games. So let the games begin, and I hope they are just that, games, and two groups of young men participating and competing for their countries, and that's the end of that. May the best team win.
Mm-hmm. And then we had the Blue Jays run at the World Series.
Yeah, that was quite exciting as well, and
right down to Game 7.
Yeah, I'm not a baseball fan. I have a hard time watching baseball from an entertainment perspective, but that entire Blue Jays run was absolutely riveting. So you didn't have to be a baseball fan to appreciate what was going on here. Is basically a David versus Goliath situation where the Los Angeles Dodgers had a payroll that was bigger than 12 National League teams combined against the Toronto Blue Jays. Mm-hmm. So it went down to the wire. Either team could have won. A couple of mistakes here and there, and there goes the series. So yeah, I think above and beyond the four country tournament that we had in hockey. This was way up there, and I would not be surprised if this actually surpassed the Four Nations hockey tournament in terms of Canadians jumping on the Blue Jays bandwagon to cheer them on in the 7-game World Series against the Los Angeles Dodgers. All you saw on the sports channels, you looked at traditional media, all you heard about was the Blue Jays, and you don't see that very often as frequently as that. And you know what? I jumped on the bandwagon. I don't like baseball, but I watched the games. The last three games I watched almost in their entirety. So it was good for the sport, great for the sport, good for the country, and great on good for the Blue Jays as well in terms of their future levels of competitiveness in baseball.
And the one thing that I noticed in the fall with this run that the Jays had was like there was another surge of Canadian patriotism from coast to coast to coast. Everybody in the country pretty much was a Blue Jays fan
Yeah,
at that point because they're representing Canada, and I think that again, as I say, there was that surge of national pride that we'd always been very low key about. But again, as you said, Eddie, there's one thing we can thank south of the border for, and that's like awakening the giant.
hmm
And we're good to go now as a country
yeah.
for sure. We're rallying behind anything Canadian at all.
Yeah, and Gary, let's not forget about the Canadian ladies in the
Thank
sports
you.
team.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! I mean, they continue. The ladies soccer team continues to be ranked one, two, and three in the world. Ice hockey one and two with the Americans neck and neck consistently. The success of the professional women's hockey league here in North America, it continues to evolve. Montreal, Toronto, sold out arenas. The Place Bell, which is the Mini Bell Center here in
Mhm.
Montreal, where the AHL Montreal Canadian affiliate Rocket play. Every ladies' game, the Victoire, Montreal Victoire, sold out 10,000 seats every game. So the ladies on the sports stage just continue to get higher and higher and higher in terms of attendance and in terms of interest. And I was very proud to do for us to do a piece on the Canadian ladies rugby team, who valiantly went to the finals of the World Rugby Championship for women against England, and they stayed in there with them. They didn't get blown out. And as a result of their endeavors, Gary, they are now ranked number 2 in the world in rugby. So you know what? Top marks to the ladies. The men's teams in baseball, and you got the men's teams in hockey. Okay, fair enough. But for the ladies to actually make a dent in the men's leagues profiles, professional teams in Canada and national teams, you know what? Good on them. I
Yep.
love watching the ladies play any sport because in some cases they are a lot tougher than the guys are in a lot of regards. Like, I mean, hats off to them.
Yep.
I look forward to their participation in any whether it's the Olympics in ice hockey, the World Cup of soccer, rugby. I can't wait to see another tournament with the girls play. I definitely hope that there is going to be some sort of tournaments of a high caliber level on the ladies side. I would definitely go pay to see soccer. I would definitely go pay to watch the girls do participate in rugby. Great athletes all around.
All right. Now, is there any one thing that you might reflect upon as your favorite story of the year?
Oh boy, Gary, that's putting me on the spot.
No,
Yeah,
I'm not trying to put you
yeah,
on the spot
no,
because I'm trying to figure it out myself. I've been
yeah,
thinking about
I,
it.
I am really, really hard
Yeah.
pressed. So if I owned a magazine and I was going to put a picture on Eddie's magazine right in the front page, what would I put on there?
Yeah. I
Gary, I really don't know. There's just so many of them. Um,
and the impact
you know
has
what?
been
Maybe one.
I
The
okay.
Canadian flag and everything that represents and everything that we've done as Canadians to support that flag. If anything, I'd say the Canadian flag,
Right.
the
And
patriotism.
the fact that more and more Americans, when they go overseas, are putting the Canadian flag on pieces of personal items to
Yeah.
try and hide the fact they're American. That speaks volumes too.
Yeah.
You know what? I think for me, and I think you really hit a good one, bang on. I think I would maybe follow it up with a huge question mark
Okay.
over the globe, because
True.
based on everything that's happened this year, really, who knows what the hell is coming next year, and whether it's positive or negative, or you have a happy balance, but there's a large question mark in there as well, and I think I would do that as a follow up to your cover.
Mm-hmm.
There's I cannot single out any real favorite story as such. There are so many of them that wouldn't really rank as favorites anyway, but they were so impactful that you have to acknowledge that they happened.
And they're all
So,
tied. They're all tied into each other
yeah,
one way or the other, or it's kind of like a circular thing where you basically end up where you started. It's been one of these years where the news cycle is just continuous, and the news story is continuous. It just doesn't seem to end. Yeah, so that's you know what, Gary, that's a really interesting question. I love your response about the question mark, and that question mark is in place. Well, what are we going to see next week, Gary? What are we going to see next month? I mean, I don't
exactly.
think we can go further than that because it just changes so quickly and so often. Wow, good one. I like that question mark.
Yeah. So there you have it. That's our wrap on 2025. I know we didn't hit everything, but these are some of the things that as we were, just started talking, that rolled out and obviously had a wide impact all the way around.
Yeah.
We hope you've enjoyed our reflections on some of the events impacting our daily lives. It's been quite the year over the past 12 months, Eddie.
Yeah. And I would encourage everybody who sees this, leave a comment below and let us know your thoughts on the year that was. And please subscribe, follow, and share to help grow our channel and Facebook page. I'm Eddie Tekalik. Enjoy family and friends over Christmas and the New Year celebrations.
And I'm Gary MacDonald, wishing you a safe and happy holiday period. Night Talk Canada returns for its regular streams on January 7th, 2026. See you next year. Good night.